I am just a chronicler, and today I will help you sleep and relax. But before we begin, I would like you to tell me which city you are from and what time you are watching this. I will respond to those who comment. Now, subscribe to the channel, relax, and let's begin. Blood dripped from my nose onto the stone floor. My hands shook as I pressed them against the cold wall of the underground sanctuary. The chanting had started again. I could hear it clearly now, getting louder with each passing second. I am Brother Thomas. 3 months ago, the Order assigned me to guard this underground sanctuary beneath the remote fortress of Saint Martin de Champs. I was 22, newly knighted, and proud to receive such an important duty. Now I wish they had sent me to die in battle instead. It started on my first night of guard duty. The sanctuary was a circular chamber deep beneath the fortress, accessible only by a narrow spiral staircase. 6 stone pillars surrounded a central platform where the sarcophagus sat. The sarcophagus was made of black stone, sealed with lead and marked with crosses. No one told me what was inside. When I asked, the senior brothers just said it contained holy relics that needed protection. The first week passed quietly. I would sit on my wooden stool, torch burning in its bracket, and read from my prayer book. Sometimes I dozed. Sometimes I paced. The silence was heavy, but not threatening. Then I heard it. A whisper, so faint I thought I imagined it. It came from the direction of the sarcophagus. A few syllables in a language I didn't recognize. I got up and walked around the stone box, holding my torch close. Nothing seemed different. The seals were intact. I touched the cold surface and felt no vibration. The next night it happened again. This time the whispers were clearer. They sounded like Latin, but wrong somehow. The words twisted and distorted. I made the sign of the cross and gripped my sword hilt. The whispers continued for several minutes before fading away. I wanted to report it to my superiors, but what would I say? That I was hearing voices. They would think I was going mad. Or worse, that I was unfit for my sacred duty. So I kept quiet and prayed harder. The whispers became a nightly occurrence. Sometimes they lasted minutes, sometimes hours. I started to distinguish individual voices in the chorus. Men, women, children, all speaking in that corrupted Latin. They seemed to be reciting something, the same phrases over and over. I stopped sleeping properly. Even during the day, lying in my narrow bed in the fortress above, I could hear echoes of those voices in my head. Dark circles formed under my eyes. My hands developed a constant tremor. Other brothers noticed and asked if I was ill. I blamed it on the cold and damp of the underground chamber. After a month, I started feeling watched. Not just during the chanting, all the time. Eyes boring into my back whenever I turned away from the sarcophagus. I took to sitting with my back against a pillar, sword drawn across my knees. Still, the feeling persisted. The chanting grew louder. What started as whispers became a low drone that filled the chamber. The voices spoke faster, more urgently. Sometimes they seemed to be arguing or fighting. Other times they joined in perfect harmony that made my teeth ache. I began to notice patterns in the stone floor, lines and swirls that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. The shadows cast by my torch stretched and contracted in ways that defied natural law. The air grew thick and heavy, like breathing underwater. 6 weeks in, the physical symptoms started. Nosebleeds that wouldn't stop, splitting headaches, muscle spasms that left me gasping on the floor, Still I maintained my vigil. I was a Knight Templar. I had sworn an oath. The dreams were the worst part. Every time I managed to sleep, I saw the same thing. The sarcophagus lid slowly sliding open, revealing something rising from within. I always woke up before I could see what it was. But each time, the dream felt more real. I started finding scratches on my arms and legs when I woke up. 2 months into my duty, the voices started speaking directly to me. They knew my name. They knew things about my past that no one else knew. My sins, my secrets, my deepest fears. They promised to stop tormenting me if I would just open the sarcophagus. Just a peek inside, they said. What harm could it do? I resisted. I recited prayers until my throat was raw. I beat my head against the pillars to drown out their voices. I cut my palms with my dagger and let the pain anchor me to reality. Nothing helped. The other brothers definitely noticed something was wrong now. I had lost weight. My hair was going grey at the temples. I jumped at sudden movements and flinched away from human contact. They whispered about me when they thought I couldn't hear. But still, no one relieved me of my duty. Last night, everything changed. The chanting reached a fever pitch. Dozens of voices howling in that twisted Latin. The shadows danced wildly in the torchlight. The patterns in the floor began to move and writhe. Blood poured from my nose and ears. That's when I saw it. A hairline crack appearing in the sarcophagus lid. Just the tiniest split in the lead seals. But it was enough. Black liquid began to seep out, thick as tar. It ran down the sides of the stone box and began spreading across the floor in geometric patterns. I should have run. I should have sounded the alarm. Instead, I found myself walking toward it, drawn by the voices that now filled my head completely. They weren't threatening anymore. They were welcoming, loving. They promised to show me truths that would shake the foundations of my faith. The crack widened as I approached. More black liquid poured out, forming a growing pool at my feet. My reflection in its surface showed someone I barely recognized. Gaunt, wild-eyed, aged beyond my years, but also transformed, enlightened. I reached for the lid. The voices rose in anticipation. My fingers touched the cold stone. That's where I am now, blood dripping from my nose. Hands pressed against the wall, the chanting growing louder. The black liquid spreading across the floor, the crack in the lid widening. I know I should stop. I know opening the sarcophagus will unleash something terrible, but I can't resist anymore. I have to know. I have to see. My hands move to the lid. The voices reach a crescendo. The shadows writhe. The patterns in the floor pulse with dark energy. I lift. Light floods the chamber. Holy light, burning light, impossible light. The voices turn to screams. The black liquid evaporates. My eyes feel like they're melting. In their sockets, inside the sarcophagus, is truth. Terrible truth. Truth that breaks minds and shatters faith. Truth about what really lies at the heart of everything we Templars believe. I try to look away, but I can't. The light fills me, burns through me, transforms me. I understand now. I understand everything. They'll find my body in the morning. They'll seal the sanctuary. They'll choose another guardian. The cycle will continue. But I'll be gone. Gone to a place beyond faith, beyond doubt, beyond sanity. Gone to where the voices live. This is my testimony. My confession. My warning. Some truths are meant to stay buried. Some relics are meant to stay guarded. But it's too late for me now. The lid is opening. The light is rising. The truth is, the manuscript ends here. Brother Thomas's body was found the next morning, kneeling before the unopened sarcophagus. His eyes had been burned from their sockets. The sarcophagus remains sealed. A new guardian has been appointed. Story 2. My hands won't stop shaking. The ink has spilled 3 times already. I need to write this down before they find me, before the shadows return, before I complete what I started without meaning to. I am Brother Marcus, scribe of the Templar monastery of St. Père-Lachaise. I was assigned to catalogue and transcribe the ancient manuscripts in our library's restricted section. That's where I found it. A leather-bound volume with no markings, hidden behind a loose stone in the wall. The first thing I noticed was the weight. It felt too heavy for its size, like it was made of lead instead of paper. The leather cover was cold to touch, even in the warm library. When I opened it, dust fell from the pages. The writing was in Latin, but the letters seemed to shift and change as I looked at them. I should have reported it immediately. That's what the rules required for any unauthorized texts. Instead, I sat down at my desk and started reading. The first pages described a ritual, not the usual Christian ceremonies. This was older, much older. The instructions were precise. Specific times, specific movements, specific words to be spoken. But the purpose wasn't clear. Not at first. I worked through the night, transcribing the text. My candle burned lower. The library grew darker. That's when I saw the first shadow. It moved at the edge of my vision, a dark shape passing between the bookshelves. When I turned to look, nothing was there, but I could feel it watching me. I kept writing. The ritual instructions became more complex. Diagrams appeared in the margins, circles and symbols I didn't recognize. My hand copied them automatically. The shadows grew bolder. They started gathering in the corners of the room. 3, then 5, then dozens of them. Dark figures just standing there, watching. I could feel their attention on me like a physical weight. My writing got faster. I couldn't stop. The words seemed to flow directly from my mind to the page without passing through conscious thought. The shadows crept closer. Dawn came. The shadows retreated. I looked down at what I'd written. 30 pages of text and diagrams, all in my handwriting, but I couldn't remember copying most of it. My fingers were stained black with ink. My back ached. My eyes burned. I hid both books, the original and my copy, behind the loose stone and went to morning prayers. Throughout the day, I couldn't focus. The words of the ritual kept repeating in my head. The symbols from the diagrams floated before my eyes. That night, I returned to the library. The shadows were waiting for me. They seemed more solid now. I could almost make out features in their dark faces. They gathered around as I retrieved the books and continued transcribing. The ritual's purpose began to become clear. It was a summoning, but not of demons or spirits. Something older. Something that existed before light, before faith, before the world itself. Something that waited in the spaces between. Spaces I worked through another night. More shadows appeared. They pressed closer, eager. Their presence made the candle flames sputter and dim. The air grew thick and cold. In the morning, I found scratches on my arms that I didn't remember getting. The words I'd transcribed were different from the original text. Expanded, elaborated, with new details I somehow knew were correct. The third night, The shadows spoke. Not in words, but in whispers that bypassed my ears and went straight to my brain. They showed me visions of the ritual being performed. I saw hooded figures moving in precise patterns. I heard the words being chanted. I felt the power building. I understood what would happen if the ritual was completed. What would be let into our world? What would happen to those who performed it? The knowledge made me sick, but I couldn't stop writing. The shadows wouldn't let me. They had hooks in my mind now. Every time I tried to leave, pain shot through my skull until I returned to the desk. On the fourth night, my hands moved on their own. The shadows pressed against me, through me, guiding my quill. The text was almost complete. Just a few more pages. That's when Brother Thomas found me. He'd noticed my absence from meals, my distraction during prayers. He came to check the library. I tried to warn him. The shadows surged forward. He saw them too. I know he did. His face went white. He turned to run. I found him this morning, kneeling in the chapel. His hair had gone completely white. He was repeating the ritual words over and over, staring at nothing. Now I'm sitting here, writing this warning. The shadows are all around me. The ritual text is nearly complete. I can feel something building, a pressure in the air, a weight in my mind. Last night, in a moment of clarity, I checked the final pages of the original manuscript. There was a note there, written in a shaking hand. I thought I was transcribing the text. I thought I was preserving ancient knowledge. But the act of copying is part of the ritual itself. Each transcription builds power. Each new copy brings them closer. This will be the final version. The shadows tell me so. They only needed one more. Below that was a signature, my signature, but I haven't signed it yet. The shadows are pressing closer. My hands are moving again, finishing the last pages. I can feel myself slipping away. If you're reading this, burn the books. All of them, every copy, before the ritual completes itself, before the shadows finish their work, before the rest of the pages are blank except for a signature at the bottom. Brother Marcus's name, written in a shaking hand. Addendum. When the other monks broke into the library, they found it empty. Both manuscripts were gone. Brother Marcus was never seen again, but new copies of the text keep appearing in monastery libraries across Europe, always incomplete, always needing just one more transcription. Story 3. I've served the Templar Order for 20 years. I've killed men in battle. I've seen friends die. I've faced death without flinching. But what I discovered last night in Commander Gerard's chambers has broken me. My name is Sir Robert de V. I'm writing this account because I don't expect to live through the next day. They're coming for me. I can hear them in the corridor now, but the truth needs to be recorded. It started 3 months ago. I was doing my regular inspection of the armory when I noticed something odd about Commander Gerard's sword. There was a symbol etched into the pommel, not our usual Templar cross, but something else, something older. The lines curved in ways that hurt my eyes to look at. I checked the other weapons in his rack. The same symbol appeared on all of them, hidden in places you wouldn't notice unless you were looking closely. Under the grip of his dagger, inside his shield rim, even carved into his armor joints. That night, during evening prayers, I heard something. A voice, barely audible, coming from the direction of the commander's private chapel. It wasn't Latin or French or any language I recognized. The sound made my teeth ache. I shouldn't have investigated. I should have minded my own business. But I'd fought beside Gerard for 15 years. If something was wrong, I needed to know. The next day, I started watching him. He spent too much time alone in his chambers. He missed prayers regularly, something he'd never done before, and the other senior knights seemed to be avoiding him. A week later, I found the first body. A novice knight, just 17 years old, hidden in an unused storage room. His chest was carved with those same symbols I'd seen on the weapons. The official story was that he'd deserted. I knew better. I started keeping a written record of everything I observed. Strange chants at midnight, lights under the commander's door when he should have been sleeping, knights entering his chambers, and leaving hours later with blank expressions and no memory of where they'd been. The symbols began appearing everywhere, scratched into door frames, drawn in the dust of unused rooms, painted in something dark and flaking on the underside of dinner plates. 2 weeks ago, my sword hand started shaking, just slightly at first, but it got worse every day. The tremors spread up my arm. My fingers went numb. When I checked my own sword, I found one of those symbols had appeared on it overnight. The other knights stopped talking to me. They turned away when I approached. In the dining hall, they left empty seats on either side of me, but I could feel them watching. Always watching. The dreams started next. In them, I saw Commander Gerard standing at an altar, but not a Christian one. The altar was black stone, and it pulsed like a heart. He was speaking those words I'd heard through his door, and each syllable made reality ripple like water. I woke from these dreams with nosebleeds. My pillow was stained red every morning. My hair started falling out in clumps. Food tasted like ashes. Last night, I finally did it. I broke into his chambers while he was at evening mass. What I found, the walls were covered in those symbols, thousands of them, drawn in blood and black ink and substances I couldn't identify. They seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. His desk held scrolls, written in that strange language. The ink was still wet, though he hadn't been in the room. For hours, as I watched, the letters crawled across the page like insects. Under his bed was a trap door. The smell that came up from below was like rotting meat and burning metal. I heard chanting from deep underground, dozens of voices speaking in unison. But it was what I found in his private chapel that broke me. The cross had been inverted, but that wasn't the worst part. Behind the altar was a tapestry showing the true history of the Templar order. Not the version we're taught, but the real truth. We aren't soldiers of Christ. We never were. The order is older than Christianity, older than written history. We've worn many masks throughout the ages, taken many names, but our true purpose has always been the same. The symbols aren't just symbols. They're keys, unlocking something that was locked away centuries ago. Each one we carve, each one we paint or scratch or draw, weakens the barriers a little more. Commander Gerard isn't just practicing heresy. He's completing a ritual that was started before the pyramids were built. And he's not alone. There are others like him in every Templar fortress across Europe, all working toward the same goal. I found a letter on his desk, written to someone called the Guardian of the Final Gate. It said simply, "The stars are almost aligned. The symbols are nearly complete. What sleeps will soon awake." I took the letter as evidence. That was my mistake. Within an hour, every knight in the fortress knew what I'd done. I could see It in their eyes at evening meal. They all had the same blank expression I'd seen before. They all watched me with the same empty stares. Now I'm in my quarters, writing this warning. My sword hand won't stop shaking. Blood is dripping from my nose onto the parchment. The symbols have appeared on my walls. I didn't draw them, but there they are, multiplying like mold. I can hear them coming down the corridor. Their footsteps are in perfect unison. They're speaking those words, those terrible words that make reality shiver. The commander is with them. I can hear his voice above the others. He's asking me to open the door. He says he wants to show me the truth, the real truth, the truth behind all truths. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely write. The symbols on my walls are moving, reaching out with lines of black ink. The air feels thick, like breathing soup. They're at my door now. The wood is shaking. Those words, they're chanting. I recognize them now. They're the same words written on that tapestry behind the altar. The same words that were old when the world was young. The door is breaking. The commander is still talking, but his voice isn't human anymore. Nothing about him is human anymore. I won't let them take me. I won't become like the others, an empty shell speaking those terrible words. I have my dagger. It's still clean, still free of those symbols. One quick thrust and the manuscript ends here. The body of Sir Robert D. was found in his quarters, a dagger in his heart. The official record states he died of fever and madness. The commander continues his work. The symbols continue to spread. The barriers continue to weaken. And in every Templar fortress across Europe, the chanting continues. Story 4. The sand in my water skin tastes like blood. My compass spins endlessly. We've been walking for 23 days in this desert, and the sun hasn't set once. I am Commander Felipe de Montfort, leader of this doomed pilgrimage, and I must record what happened before the dark figure returns. We left Jerusalem with 12 Templar knights and 40 pilgrims. The route to St. Catherine's Monastery was well established, a 14-day journey across the Sinai Desert. I'd led this pilgrimage 3 times before. The first sign of trouble came on day 3. The sun should have set, but it didn't. It hung at the same position in the sky, burning down on us hour after hour. The pilgrims grew restless. I checked my timepiece repeatedly. The hours passed, but the sun stayed fixed. By the end of what should have been the first day, 4 pilgrims had collapsed from heat exhaustion. We gave them water and set up camp, waiting for night. It never came. I consulted my maps. The landmarks didn't match what we were seeing. Mountains appeared where there should have been flat desert. Valleys opened up where no valleys existed on any chart. That's when I first saw the figure. It stood on a distant dune, completely black against the eternal sun, too tall to be human, too still to be alive. It raised one long arm and pointed to the east. I ordered the group to head west. 3 pilgrims disappeared that night, if you could call it night when the sun never set. We found their footprints in the sand, leading toward where I'd seen the figure. The tracks simply stopped in the middle of a dune. My second in command, Brother Jacques, suggested we turn back. I agreed. We turned around and walked for 6 hours. The landscape should have been familiar. It wasn't. Nothing matched our outward journey. The black figure appeared again, closer this time. I could see it had no face, just smooth black emptiness where features should be. It pointed east again. We lost 2 more. pilgrims. Then 3 knights vanished during their watch. Each time, there were footprints leading nowhere. Each time, the figure appeared afterward, pointing east. The water started to taste wrong, like metal, like blood. But we had to drink it. The sun kept burning. My skin blistered and peeled, then blistered again. On what my timepiece said was day 12, Brother Jacques went mad. He started screaming about sins and judgment. He ran toward the figure before anyone could stop him. We found his sword and armor in the sand. Nothing else. The pilgrims began whispering that this was divine punishment, that we were being judged for our sins, that the figure was an angel of justice. I didn't believe it until the dream started. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself standing in a great hall. Shadows sat in judgment around me. The black figure stood in the center, pointing at me. And I remembered the village we'd raised 5 years ago. Not fighters, just peasants who wouldn't pay their tithes. I ordered the buildings burned. People died screaming. In my dreams, I heard those screams again. The figure showed me each face, each death, over and over. When I awoke, more pilgrims were gone. More footprints led to nowhere. The figure stood closer. By day 16, we had 6 knights and 12 pilgrims left. The water ran out, but the blood-tasting liquid kept refilling our skins. The sun kept burning. My compass spun wildly. Brother Thomas confessed to me that he was seeing his own sins in his dreams. The peasant girl he'd assaulted, the merchant he'd robbed, the companion he'd betrayed. He disappeared that night. His footprints led east. One by one, the others confessed their sins to me. One by one, they vanished. Each time, the figure drew closer. Now I'm alone. My water skin fills itself with blood-flavored liquid. My skin burns and heals and burns again. The sun hasn't moved in 23 days. The figure stands at the edge of our camp now. I can see the emptiness where its face should be. It points east, toward a valley I don't remember seeing before. In my last dream, it spoke, not in words, but in images. It showed me a place, a temple buried in sand, a place where sins are weighed, where judgment is passed, where penitence is extracted. I understand now. This isn't a pilgrimage. It never was. It's a summoning. The figure didn't take my companions. It called them to face judgment, called them to pay for their sins. It's calling me now. My feet are moving on their own, east, toward the valley, toward the buried temple, toward judgment. I can see others walking ahead of me now, familiar shapes in the distance. Brother Jacques, the missing pilgrims, all walking east. The sun burns overhead, fixed and eternal. My footprints appear in the sand behind me, then fade away to nothing. The figure walks beside me now. Its empty face turns toward me. In that blackness, I see every sin I've ever committed, every life I've taken, every trust I've betrayed. The valley opens before us. Sand falls away, revealing ancient steps leading down to where judgment waits. My feet keep moving. The others are ahead of me, descending. Their faces are peaceful now. They've accepted what's coming, what we've earned. The figure gestures. Come, it says without words. Come and be judged. I take the first step down. The sand closes behind me. The eternal sun fades away. In the darkness below, I hear voices, screams, prayers. The sounds of justice being served. This is the true pilgrimage, the path of penitence, the road to judgment. I take another step down, found in a waterskin in the Sinai Desert, 1187. The search party sent to find Commander Philippe de Montfort and his pilgrims found nothing but empty desert. The sun set normally. No black figure was seen, but even today, travelers report seeing shapes walking east across the dunes, led by a tall, dark figure. They say if you listen carefully at night, you can hear screams coming from beneath the sand, the sounds of sinners facing judgment, walking the path of penitence forever. Story 5. I haven't slept in 6 days. Every time I close my eyes, I see the hooded figure on the tower stairs. My hands shake as I write this. The other guards think I'm mad. Maybe I am, but I know what I've seen. I am Sergeant Michel Dupont of the Templar Order, assigned to guard the northwest tower of Chateau de 3 weeks ago. We received reports of Saracen scouts in the area. Commander Laurent doubled the guard rotations. He assigned me to the midnight watch. The northwest tower is the tallest in the chateau. 273 steps to the top. I've counted them every night. The stairway spirals up through darkness. 3 arrow slits let in moonlight. The steps are worn smooth from centuries of boots. My first week of guard duty was quiet. I would climb the steps at midnight, relieve Brother Antoine, and stand watch until dawn. 6 hours of listening to the wind and watching the countryside. Nothing unusual. Then came the night of the new moon. Total darkness. I was climbing the steps with my torch when I first saw it. A figure in a black hood, standing by the second arrow slit. Just standing there, not moving, not breathing. I drew my sword, called out a challenge. No response. I moved closer, torch extended. The figure was gone. Just empty stairs and shadows. I searched the entire stairwell. No doors, no hidden passages, nowhere for anyone to hide. I convinced myself it was just shadows playing tricks in the torchlight. The next night, it appeared again. Same spot, same black hood. This time, I ran straight at it, sword raised. My blade passed through empty air. The figure vanished. But I felt something when I passed through that spot. A cold that went straight to my bones. I reported it to Commander Laurent. He listened, faced neutral, then assigned another guard to search the tower with me. Brother Gabriel and I found nothing. He wrote in his report that the tower was secure. The commander suggested I was overtired, but it kept happening. Every night the figure appeared, sometimes by the second arrow slit, sometimes by the third, sometimes at the very top of the stairs, always in that black hood, always silent, always watching. I started having trouble sleeping during the day. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hooded shape. My appetite disappeared. My hands developed a constant tremor. Other guards noticed. They whispered when I passed, started taking different routes to avoid me. Even Brother Antoine would rush past me during shift changes, barely making eye contact. A week ago, the figure spoke. I was at the top of the tower, near dawn. It appeared suddenly beside me. From beneath the hood came a whisper, "You're not ready yet." I scrambled away, drawing my sword. My foot caught on the parapet. I nearly fell. When I looked back, the figure was gone. The next night, it appeared on the stairs again. This time, it spoke a name, Sister Mariclaude. I didn't recognize the name. The figure vanished. Before I could respond. In the morning, I searched the chateau records. Sister Marie-Claude was a nun who lived here 300 years ago. She disappeared one night while walking the tower stairs. They never found her body. That's when the screaming started. Every night now, I hear it echoing up the stairwell. A woman's voice, distant and desperate. It starts at midnight and continues until dawn. None of the other guards seem to hear it. 4 days ago, I found scratches on the walls. 3 parallel lines carved deep into the stone. They weren't there during my previous shift. New scratches appear every night. They form patterns that make my eyes hurt. The figure appears more frequently now, multiple times each night. Sometimes I see it in several places at once. By each arrow slit, at the top of the stairs, behind me, in front of me. Always watching, always silent except for those whispered words. You're not ready yet. Last night, everything changed. I was at my post, fighting to stay awake. The screaming had been particularly loud. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The figure appeared directly in front of me, closer than ever before. The hood was empty, completely, impossibly black. It reached out with hands made of shadow. Now you're ready, it whispered. I ran down all 273 steps, found Brother Gabriel on patrol and begged him to check the tower with me. He agreed, probably to humor me. We climbed the stairs together. No figure, no scratches. On the walls, no screaming. But when we reached the top, Brother Gabriel looked at me strangely. He asked who I'd been talking to during my shifts. Said the other guards had heard me having conversations with someone in the tower. Said I'd been seen standing for hours, speaking to empty air. I told him everything. The figure, the screams, Sister Marie-Claude. He listened, face growing increasingly concerned. Then he told me something that made my blood freeze. There were no records of a sister Marie-Claude. He'd been stationed here for 20 years and had never heard that name. But he had heard of another guard, 30 years ago, who reported similar experiences. A figure in a black hood, whispered conversations. That guard disappeared during his shift. They only found his sword lying at the bottom of the stairs. Brother Gabriel recommended I ask to be relieved of tower duty, said I should see the monastery physician. He was worried about me. I'm writing this now, sitting at my post. At the top of the tower, dawn is still hours away. The screaming hasn't started yet, but it will. The scratches on the wall are moving, forming new patterns. The figure has appeared 4 times already tonight. Each time it's been closer. Each time the hood has been darker. My sword lies useless beside me. My torch is burning low. My hands shake so badly I can barely hold this quill. I know I should leave. Ask for reassignment. See the physician. But I can't. Something holds me here. Something wants me here. The figure just appeared again. It's standing right beside me as I write. The hood is turned toward my face. Those shadow hands are reaching. You're ready, it whispers. Sister Marie-Claude is waiting. I understand now. I know why no one found her body. Know why that guard disappeared 30 years ago. Know why the figure chose me. The tower needs a guardian. Has always needed a guardian. Will always need a guardian. The screaming has started. The scratches are spreading across the floor. The figure's hands are on my shoulders. I'm ready now. Final report on the disappearance of Sergeant Michel Dupont, filed by Commander Laurent. No body was found. Only this journal, his sword, and strange scratches on the tower walls. The northwest tower remains under guard, The new sergeant reports no unusual incidents, though he sometimes mentions hearing whispered conversations during the night watch. The investigation is closed. Story 6. The blood won't wash off my hands. It's not real blood. There are no cuts, no wounds. But I can feel it, wet and sticky, just like the day I killed that merchant. His voice whispers from the walls now, along with all the others. I need to write this down before they come for me. I am Brother Jean-Paul, a novice of the Templar order. 3 days ago, the Master of Novices assigned 5 of us to clean the ancient crypts beneath the monastery of St. Martin. A simple task, he said. Sweep away the cobwebs, clear out the debris, maintain the dignity of our deceased brothers. The crypts stretch for half a mile underground, row after row of stone corridors lined with burial niches. Some hold bones, some hold preserved bodies, some are empty, waiting for future occupants. Brother Michel led our group. The youngest of us at 16, Brother Thomas, carried the torch. Brothers Antoine and Stefan brought the brooms and buckets. I brought the ledger to record any damaged tombs. The first hour passed normally. We worked our way through the outer chambers, sweeping and cleaning. The air was stale. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Our footsteps echoed on the stone floor. Then Brother Thomas heard it. A whisper, coming from one of the war niches. He thought someone was trapped inside. We all heard his name, clear as day. Thomas, Thomas. We checked the niche. Empty, just dusty stone. We told him it was just the wind in the tunnels. But there was no wind down there. None but draft. No movement of air at all. The whispers continued as we worked deeper into the crypts. More voices, different names. Each of us heard someone calling to us. Someone we knew. Someone who shouldn't be there. I heard my mother's voice. She died when I was 12. But there she was, whispering from the walls. Jean-Paul, tell them what you did. Tell them about the merchant. My hands started shaking. I dropped my ledger. The others looked at me strangely. They couldn't hear her voice. They only heard their own whispers. Brother Michel heard his old commander, the one who died in his arms during the siege of Acre. Brother Antoine heard his sister, dead from fever last winter. Brother Stefan heard his first victim, a Saracen scout. He'd killed in ambush. Only Brother Thomas heard nothing at first. He was too young to have ghosts, too innocent to have deaths on his conscience. But that changed. We pushed deeper into the crypts. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't just calling our names now. They were telling our secrets, listing our sins. My mother's voice told everyone how I'd stabbed the merchant for his purse before I joined the order, how I'd left him bleeding in an alley, how I'd never confessed. Michel's commander described how Michel had abandoned his post, leaving 20 men to die. Antoine's sister revealed how he'd stolen her dowry before she died. Stefan's victim detailed every thrust of the knife, every moment of pain. We wanted to leave, to run back to the surface. But the whispers drew us forward, deeper and deeper into the darkness. The torch grew dimmer, the air grew thicker. Then we reached the lowest chamber, a circular room with a well in the center, black water, still as glass. And that's when Brother Thomas finally heard his whispers. They came from the well, voices of people who weren't dead yet, people he would kill, future victims, future sins, a whole life of violence and death laid out in whispered prophecy. He screamed, dropped the torch. It sizzled out in a puddle, leaving us in total darkness. I felt something wet on my hands, sticky, warm. The merchant's blood, fresh as the day I spilled it. Michel gasped. He was wearing phantom armor, crushed and bloody from the siege. Antoine felt his sister's dowry coins, burning hot in his pockets. Stefan's hands held the knife again, dripping with his victim's blood. And Thomas saw what he would become. His future victims reached up from the well. With rotting hands, they wanted to show him his destiny, show him up close. He ran, we all ran. Back through the dark corridors, the whispers followed. Every niche, every tomb, every stone in the wall held a voice now. 100 voices, 1,000, all our victims, all our sins, past and future, real and potential, screaming our guilt to the darkness. Brother Thomas fell, or was pulled. We heard him scream as he went down, heard him dragging across the stone floor, toward the well, toward his future. Michel went back for him. We heard their struggles in the dark, heard the splash, then silence. The rest of us made it out, slammed the iron door, sealed it with every lock and bar we could find. But the whispers followed us up. They're in the walls now, in every wall, getting louder each hour, speaking to everyone in the monastery, telling all our secrets, showing all our sins. Brother Antoine hanged himself this morning. Brother Stefan disappeared. They found his habit by the cliff's edge. I'm the only one left. My hands won't stop bleeding this phantom blood. The merchant's voice won't stop whispering. He's getting louder. They're all getting louder. The other monks can hear them now, their own whispers, their own sins. The monastery rings with ghostly voices. No one sleeps, no one eats. We all just listen to our guilt echoing off the stones. They're coming to seal up the crypts, block every entrance, bury every tunnel. But it won't help. The whispers are in the walls now, in the foundations, in the very earth beneath our feet. And somewhere in that darkness below, Brother Thomas and Brother Michel are learning their future sins. The well is teaching them. The voices are teaching them. Soon they'll be ready to commit the acts that their victims are already whispering about. I can hear footsteps in the corridor. They're coming for me now. Coming to take me back down, back to the well, back to where the merchant waits with all the others. My hands are dripping red. The whispers are screaming now. They want me to confess everything, every sin, every crime, every dark thought and evil deed. I can see the merchant standing in the corner. He's beckoning to me, showing me the knife wound I gave him, showing me where I'll receive the same wound, down in the darkness. It's time. The footsteps are at my door. The whispers are deafening. I have to go now, have to descend, have to face what waits below. Listen. Can you hear them, the whispers in the walls? What secrets are they telling about you? Final report on the incident at St. Martin Monastery. The crypts have been sealed. The bodies of brothers Thomas and Michel were never recovered. Brother John Paul disappeared during the investigation. The monastery has been abandoned due to reports of voices in the walls. Local peasants say they can still hear whispers coming from the ruins at night. They say the voices know their secrets, their sins, their futures. Story 7. The parchment burns my fingers as I write, not with heat, with truth. Each word I translate makes my hands shake worse. For other brothers have gone mad trying to decode this text. Now I know why. The truth about our order. I have to write this down before they find me. I am Brother Guillaume, scholar and translator for the Knights Templar. 10 days ago, during a routine patrol of the old ruins near Acre, I found a sealed clay jar hidden in a wall cavity. Inside was a rolled parchment written in a code I'd never seen before. I brought it to the monastery's library. The writing looked like Latin at first glance, but the letters were wrong. They seemed to shift and change as I stared at them. Some symbols I recognized from ancient Hebrew texts. Others resembled Arabic script. Many I'd never seen before. The first night, I worked until dawn, trying to understand it. My eyes burned. My head throbbed. The symbols danced on the page, rearranging themselves when I looked away. I finally slept for 2 hours, hunched over my desk. In my dreams, I saw the symbols floating in darkness. They whispered their meanings to me. I woke up understanding fragments of the code. The next day, I learned that 4 other brothers had found similar documents over the past year. Each had tried to translate them. Each had descended into madness. Brother Thomas threw himself from the bell tower. Brother Michel clawed out his own eyes. Brothers Antoine and Stephen simply disappeared. I should have stopped, should have burned the parchment. But I couldn't. The code called to me. The symbols wanted to be understood. On the 3rd night, I broke the first layer of encryption. What I found made my blood run cold. The text wasn't just in code. It was written by dead men, martyrs, our fallen brothers, writing from beyond the grave. They told a different history of the Templars. Not the one we learned, not the one we taught. Something older, darker. My nose started bleeding. As I worked, drops of red fell on the parchment. The symbols absorbed them, grew stronger, more clear. By the 4th night, I could read whole passages. The martyrs spoke of our true purpose, not protecting pilgrims, not guarding relics. We were meant to be gatekeepers, guardians of something ancient, something that should never be freed. The bleeding got worse. My ears rang constantly. The symbols crawled across the page like insects, forming new patterns, revealing new truths. I learned of sacrifices made in secret chambers beneath our fortresses, of rituals performed under moonless skies, of pacts signed in blood with entities older than Christianity itself. Other brothers noticed my deterioration. They saw my bloodshot eyes, my trembling hands, my bloody nose. They whispered about me in the corridors, left food outside my door that I never touched. On the 6th night, I broke through another layer of code. The martyrs showed me visions of what we truly guarded, not gold or holy relics, something that slept in the earth, something that our founders had trapped there centuries ago. The symbols began appearing on my skin. I found them carved into my arms when I woke, still bleeding. They burned like brands but left no scars. Just knowledge, terrible knowledge. I learned how the first Templars bound the ancient thing beneath the earth, how they sacrificed 999 souls to seal it, how the blood of martyrs strengthened the chains that held it. Brother Bernard came to check on me yesterday. He found me scratching symbols into the walls with my fingernails, saw the coded writing carved into my flesh. He ran to fetch the abbot. I had to barricade myself in the library, had to finish the translation, had to understand the full truth before they stopped me. Last night, I broke the final code. The martyrs showed me everything. The thing beneath the earth is awakening. The sacrifices have stopped. The chains are weakening. And we, the Templars, have forgotten our true purpose. We were never meant to be warriors for Christ. We were meant to be sacrifices. Each death, each martyr, each drop of Templar blood was meant to strengthen the chains, to keep the ancient thing sleeping. The disappearances of my fellow translators make sense now. The martyrs claimed them, added their blood to the seals. But it's not enough. The thing stirs in its sleep. Soon it will wake. I can hear them outside the library door. The abbot, the other brothers. They're going to break in, going to stop me from sharing the truth. But it's too late. I've already added my blood to the parchment, already carved the symbols into my flesh, already joined my voice to the martyrs. The door is breaking. They're coming in. But I'm ready now, ready to make my sacrifice, ready to add my blood to the chains. The thing must stay buried, must stay sleeping, and only the blood of martyrs can ensure that. My knife is sharp. The symbols on my skin show me exactly where to cut, how to make my death count, how to make it matter. They're almost through the door. I can hear the wood splintering. Brothers, if you find this, know the truth. Know our real purpose. Know what sleeps beneath your feet. The martyrs are calling. I go now to join them, to add my blood to theirs, to strengthen the chains for just a little longer. Remember the code. Remember the truth. Remember what we really are. Not warriors, not monks, not guardians. Sacrifices, all of us, forever. Final report. On the death of Brother Gim, found in the library, surrounded by coded writings in his own blood. The original parchment was never recovered. The symbols carved in his flesh vanished after death. His final manuscript was sealed in the restricted archives. The abbot has forbidden any mention of the incident. But brothers continue to disappear. Blood continues to strengthen ancient chains. And something stirs in its sleep, deep beneath the earth. Story 9. The woman in the brown cloak has appeared in the crowd 17 times today, always in the same spot, always with the same blank expression, always gone when I look directly at her. The pilgrims keep disappearing. I think I know where they're going now. I am Sir Raymond de Toulouse, a Knight Templar assigned to escort duty for the spring pilgrimage to Jerusalem. 300 faithful souls in my care, walking the dusty road from Antioch. I've done this duty 12 times before. Never lost a single pilgrim until now. The woman first appeared 3 days into the journey. Brown cloak, pale face, standing perfectly still among the moving crowd. I noticed her because she didn't sweat in the desert heat, didn't blink in the harsh sun, just watched. I counted the pilgrims that night. 299. Old Marcel, the spice merchant from Lyon, was missing. No body, no traces, just gone. The next morning, the woman was there again. Same spot in the crowd, though that should have been impossible. The pilgrims rotated positions constantly as they walked. She stayed fixed, like a rock in a stream. 2 more disappeared that day. A young mother from Provence, a priest from Bavaria. No bodies, no signs of struggle. The other pilgrims didn't even notice they were gone. I posted guards, doubled the watch, searched the camp at night. Nothing helped. The woman appeared more frequently. Every hour now, standing in that same position relative to the crowd. Her face grew clearer each time. Empty eyes, gentle smile, skin like old parchment. 5 more vanished. then 8, then 12. Always at night, always without a trace. The remaining pilgrims walked on, oblivious. When I mentioned the missing, they looked confused, as if they couldn't remember who I was talking about. I stopped sleeping, watched the crowd constantly, counted and recounted. The numbers kept dropping, and she kept appearing. Last night, I saw where they went. I was walking the camp perimeter. The woman stood at the edge of the firelight. But this time she moved, beckoned to me, led me into the darkness. A line of figures walked through the night. All the missing pilgrims, but wrong somehow, transparent, walking in perfect unison, following something I couldn't quite see. Old Marcel was there, at the front. He turned to look at me. His face had no features anymore, just smooth skin where eyes and mouth should be. I ran back to camp, spent the rest of the night watching. Counting 20 more disappeared. The woman appeared 20 times, once for each missing pilgrim, always watching, always waiting. Now I understand. She's not taking them. She's showing them their path, the path they were always meant to walk. This isn't a normal pilgrimage, never was. These aren't normal pilgrims. I look at their faces now and see the truth, see the emptiness behind their eyes, the blankness of their expressions. They're already gone, were gone before they started walking. This is the procession of the damned, souls with unfinished business, walking to a different Jerusalem, a darker one. I write this as a warning to other Templar escorts. Count your pilgrims carefully. Watch for the woman in brown. If you see her, your charges are already lost. They're just waiting to join the true procession. She's here now, watching me write. Her smile is wider. Her eyes are holes into nothing. The pilgrims are disappearing faster, fading like fog in the sun. Growing transparent. I can see the desert through their bodies. Soon they'll all be gone. Soon they'll all walk the night road to dark Jerusalem, and I'll be alone in the desert with her, unless she's beckoning again, showing me things in her empty eyes, truths about myself, about my own unfinished business. Maybe I was never meant to be their escort. Maybe I was always meant to join the procession. The remainder of the manuscript is blank. Sir Raymond de Toulouse and his entire pilgrimage of 300 souls disappeared in the desert. None of them ever reached Jerusalem. But travelers in those lands report seeing a long line of transparent figures walking by moonlight, led by a woman in a brown cloak. Those who look too long at the procession find themselves walking too, their feet moving against their will, their faces growing smooth and blank. Story 10. The ring burns colder each night. My fingers have turned black where it touches them. I can't remove it, can't even touch it anymore. The symbols on its surface keep changing, showing me things, showing me what happened to the others, what's going to happen to me. I am Brother Etienne, newly inducted into the Knights Templar. 2 weeks ago, during my initiation ceremony, the Grand Master presented me with a silver ring. An ancient tradition, he said, a mark of brotherhood. The ring looked simple enough, plain silver band, worn smooth with age, a single symbol etched on its surface, not our usual cross. Something older, something that made my eyes hurt to look at directly. The first night, I dreamed of a courtroom. Black-robed figures sat in judgment. Their faces were hidden in shadow. They spoke in a language I didn't recognize, but somehow understood. They were discussing my sins, not just the ones I'd committed, the ones I would commit, the ones I was destined to commit. I awoke with my sheets soaked in sweat. The ring felt colder than ice on my finger. The symbol had changed. The lines had shifted, forming a new pattern. As I watched, they moved again, like snakes made of silver. I tried to remove the ring. It wouldn't budge. The skin around it had turned gray and numb. In the monastery archives, I searched for records of the ring, found mentions of other brothers who had received similar rings over the centuries. All had disappeared mysteriously. Brother Thomas, 1187, vanished from his bed, leaving only a black handprint on the wall. Brother Michel, 1205, found babbling about a dark court, his hands completely black, disappeared the next day. Brother Guillaume, 1238, wrote extensively about changing symbols before walking into the sea. Dozens more cases, all the same ring, all the same pattern of disappearance. The dreams got worse. Each night, the court reviewed more of my future, showed me things I would do, horrible things, things that made me wake up screaming. The blackness spread up my hand, past my wrist. The flesh felt dead, but I could still move it, still feel everything with terrible sensitivity. Other brothers started avoiding me. They could sense something wrong, something unclean. In the dining hall, they left empty seats around me. In the chapel, they kept their distance. The ring grew colder. The symbols moved faster. Sometimes they formed pictures, faces of people I would hurt, places I would destroy, deeds I would commit in the name of faith. I stopped sleeping, spent nights in the chapel praying for help. The symbols just moved faster. The blackness crept higher. Last night, I saw the full truth. The ring showed me everything. It's not just a ring. It's a key, a lock, a chain. Centuries ago, the first Templars found something in Jerusalem, something that needed to be contained. They forged 9 rings from silver they found in Solomon's temple. Rings that could bind, rings that could seal. But the rings needed anchors, living anchors. Knights whose future sins were dark enough, deep enough, to power the binding. The court isn't judging me, it's measuring me, weighing my potential for evil, seeing if I'm worthy to be a seal. The blackness has reached my shoulder now. The symbols don't even pretend to be simple lines anymore. They show me visions constantly, horrors past and future. I understand why the others disappeared. The rings took them, used them, added their darkness to the seals. Whatever we bound beneath Jerusalem is trying to break free. The seals are failing. The rings are hungry for new anchors. My arm is completely black now. Dead flesh that somehow still moves, still feels. The cold has reached my heart. The symbols are showing me the chamber below Jerusalem, showing me what waits there, what tries to wake. I know what I have to do. The others knew too. That's why they disappeared, walked into seas, into shadows, into whatever dark places the rings led them. Better to be taken, better to become a seal. Better to add my darkness to the binding than let that thing wake up. The ring burns colder than ever. The blackness creeps up my neck. The symbols show me where to go, how to open the way, how to make my darkness useful. This is my last entry, my last warning. If they offer you a ring, run, no matter what they say about tradition, no matter what they say about brotherhood. The seals must be maintained. The anchors must be replaced. The binding must hold, and the rings must feed. Found in Brother Etienne's empty cell. The parchment is ice-cold to the touch. The ink appears to move when viewed directly. The ring was never recovered. The tradition continues. The seals hold, for now.